Each year, as we gather on Reformation Day, we Lutherans look at three texts, these same three texts every year. For those of us that have been doing it for a while, we kind of wish there were a few other texts. You're only 5 years in, so you can't complain yet. Part of the difficulty of the texts that are given today is they throw around words that we know we should hear in church, but I'm not sure we ever know what they mean. We hear about sin. What does sin really mean? Is it the violation of commandments? Is it the bad things I did today? Is it cursing somebody in traffic? Is it noticing on the grocery bill that they didn't charge me for something that I received and I didn't take it back? Is that what we're talking about? The little things that we do that somehow hurt another or hurt God? It talks about grace. Grace, the unmerited love of God. And I'm not sure we know what to do with that word either, because we certainly don't live by it. We're more inclined to live by the Buddhist principle of karma, which means that you get what you are supposed to get, that the scales are always balanced. We throw around the word freedom today from the Gospel of John. Now, we Americans, we're the land of the free and the home of the brave, right? So we should know freedom better than anybody else. And I remain unconvinced, especially with all of the political ads I've been watching lately. I'm not sure any of them know what the heck they're talking about. So, what do all these words mean? What is it we celebrate this day? The grace of God, as Paul says, that it is what saves us, not any of our own works. What does it mean today that Christ has set us free and shown us the truth? What does it mean? When we are young children, like Poppy, we come into this world and we really know only how to do about 4 or 5 things, right? I don't have to go into details. We sleep, we eat, you know the list. We also come into the world as children knowing that when we make noise, which is about the first thing that we do when we come into the world, right there in the delivery room, that when we make noise, somebody pays attention to us, right? That's what parents do. Child cries, you figure out what's going on. Now, you two are still figuring out what the cries mean, I'm sure. There's this kind of translation process. Well, does it mean food? Does it mean dirty diaper? What does it mean? What does it mean? But Poppy keeps making a noise, and so you come running. The interesting thing about that is that if Poppy learns nothing else, she will think all the time that she grows up from this age to her dying day that she's got to make noise in this world if anybody's going to pay attention to her. It is parents' job, especially as Christian parents, to show her that it has nothing to do with the noise she's making. What it has to do with is the love that you have for your child. That you would feed her whether she cried or not, that you would change her diaper, well, as soon as you noticed, that it has nothing to do with her cries. Nothing to do with what she's doing in the world. She would learn to live by grace. That she hasn't merited anything. One of the reasons we baptize children in our tradition is because they can't bring anything to the table. She can't earn what we just did. She can't pass a test. She can't recite the Apostles' Creed. She can't show us that she can live a sinless life. All she can do is, well, the 4 or 5 things that babies do. And we baptize her because that's how God accepts us. If Poppy never learns that she's loved and that's the source of what she's been given, then she will, and I suspect all of us, even though we're way older than Poppy, still have vestiges of this, she will learn that she has to make noise and fulfill expectations in order to get anything. And there are many, many children who grow up in households where crying, fulfilling expectations, making sure that mom and dad are happy, and living up to the rules and keeping the boundaries are all required before they get what they need. Sometimes we live in that so long and so often that we never break free from it. We lay a parent in the grave and still don't know whether they loved us because the expectations were higher than the love given. We enter this world with the idea that we can make our way ourselves, that we must cry louder than everybody else in order to get what we need, that we need to do whatever it is to get the attention of others so that we have what we want. And yet the truth is, it will all come as a gift. If we don't unlearn that and learn to live in love, then soon we go off to school and we find out, well, that in order to be a person, I need to live up to the expectations of my teacher or my coach. I grow up a little bit longer and I have to live up to the expectations of the rest of my family and the community that I live in. I go and I get my first job and I find out that that's all about living up to the expectations and the demands of my boss, the company I work for, the thing that I do. That's all the law. When we talk about law in church, we often think it's just the 10 Commandments or maybe just what's in the Old Testament. But if you take those things away, we just make up our own law. The things that we have to fulfill in order to get noticed. We live in a world that divides winners from losers constantly, every day, every moment. We make sure we know who the cool kids and the uncool kids are on the playground. We know who the good employees are and the bad employees are. We know who gets the favor and who doesn't get the favor. And we will make promises and do things no matter what it takes in order to earn what can only be given by grace. Back to those political ads that make all sorts of promises that nobody can keep. They're just trying to fulfill an expectation so that you'll vote. I have to laugh when I see somebody running for a state office who's going to work down the street here in Des Moines, promising they're going to cure inflation, which is a global economic reality. Come on. So we live in a world where the law is defined by not just God's law, but all the laws we impose on each other. And to that, we are a slave. We're enslaved to a life where we're always working to make sure that mom or dad approve, or the boss approves, or the coach approves, or the world approves, or the neighbors don't complain, or whatever the case is. Are you starting to fill in the blanks of how the law goes? You can't go to a Christmas dinner, a Thanksgiving dinner, which is coming up soon, and not know that there will be dozens of expectations around the table on whether the turkey was good, whether the yams were cooked appropriately, and whether the pie is of the appropriate texture. And that, my friends, is the law, because we don't want Aunt Maud upset at us. We live in a world full of law. And Jesus breaks into that today, as he does in the gospel, and says, I am the truth and I'll set you free. The response of the Jews who had been following him as disciples, they look at him and they say, we've never been slaves to anyone. We're children of Abraham. Now that's funny on a couple of levels. First off, they're the children of Abraham. They're defined by being slaves. And they're celebrating in Jerusalem the Passover, which is a feast about being set free from slavery. And here's your response. We've never been slaves to anyone. We've never been slaves to anyone. And that's how we all think, isn't it? They're slaves to everything. Matter of fact, they spend a lot of their time figuring out who's a good child of Abraham and who's a bad child of Abraham. Because if I can prove you're a worse child of Abraham, then I'm justified and you're not. And the law continues to spread. We live in this world creating laws that will bind us forever. Husbands and wives, when they say to me, well, we just don't love each other anymore, I suspect, as I listen, that it's because they've forgotten how to love each other. Not that they don't. It's not a feeling. It's an action. They're so bound by the expectations that they have for another that they can't live in love. So today in baptism, we set Poppy free. Set her free from whatever her fourth grade soccer coach is going to expect of her, or whatever her piano teacher is going to expect of her. Guitar teacher, excuse me. Got the wrong instrument. We've set her free, and here's the shocking part, of even what mom and dad expect of her. Because she's already got enough. You see, Jesus stands before those children of Abraham, and he says, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free if you're my disciple. The truth in this case is not some kind of idea. It's not a philosophy. It's not a book that we read. The truth is Jesus himself. And he comes and dies on a cross and says, you're okay. I love you. And nobody can add anything to that. What more do you need? We live with all kinds of laws that tell us, well, if I take the right vitamins, I go to the right doctor, I do the right exercise, I eat the right food, of which I do none of, that I will live forever. It's nonsense. The only healer I need is Jesus, who can raise me from the dead, and the death rate is 1 per person. The only thing I need is what Jesus has already given me. I am part of the existence and the creation because God said so and made me so. How many of you put a lot of effort into the cell structure of your body? You work on that every day? How about breathing? How about heartbeats? How about oxygen in the air? How about having the right gravity to keep you on the ground? How about any of that? You see, existence is a gift, and Jesus gives it. You don't need anything more. And when we know that and stop worrying about ourselves, then we are free to love others. Then we are free to love others because I don't have to worry about myself anymore. To know that we are accepted is what this day is all about. One of the great Lutheran theologians, actually theologians of all time in the 20th century, was a man named Paul Tillich. Most people who read Tillich's works find that he is a little dry and stuffy and hard to understand. And that's true in a lot of ways. But his sermons, like his counterpart Karl Barth, they weren't just good theologians, they could preach. And so I tried writing how to sum up this sermon several times this week, and I kept going back to things I learned from Tillich. So let me just have him speak to you. Here is the state of our life, Tillich says. The state of our whole life is estrangement from others and estrangement from our lives. We don't know others because we're too busy worrying about ourselves, and we don't even know ourselves because we've cut ourselves off from the God who made us. We're estranged from the ground of our being because we're estranged from the origin and aim of our life, and we do not know where we've come from or where we're going. We may think we do, but it's defined by all the expectations that we've built up. We hear a voice inside us that says there's more. We hear a voice inside us, but our ears are closed. We feel that something radical, total, and unconditioned is demanded of us, but we rebel against it. And then grace strikes us, Tillich says. Grace strikes us when we are in great pain and restlessness. It strikes us when we walk through the dark valley of meaningless and empty life. It strikes us when we feel that our separation is deeper than usual because we've violated another life, a life which we loved and from which we are estranged. It strikes us when our disgust of our own being, our indifference, our weakness, our hostility, and our lack of direction and composure have become intolerable to us. Anybody else ever get up and look in the mirror and say, I just don't like that person? I wish I was something different? That's what Tillich's talking about. It strikes us when year after year the longed-for perfection of life does not appear. When the old compulsions reign within us, as they have for decades, when despair destroys all joy and courage. Sometimes at that moment, a wave of light breaks into our darkness, and it is as though a voice were saying, you are accepted. You are accepted, accepted by that which is greater than you, and the name of which you do not know. Do not ask for the name now. Perhaps you'll find it later. Do not try to do anything now. Perhaps later you will do much. Do not seek for anything. Do not perform anything. Do not intend anything. Simply accept the fact that you're accepted. If that happens to us, we've experienced grace. You see, we live a whole life trying to achieve grace and love and faith instead of receive it because it's already been given. Poppy's got everything she needs. Life, breath, people who love her, a community. She doesn't need anything else. It'll be great if she's the next Caitlin Clark or whatever, but that's all gravy. Because at the root of things, she is a beloved child of God, and so are you. And that's all you need. So Jesus' word to you today and to me is to think of all the ways that you try to live into the world's expectations. Think of all the people that you're trying to please. Think of all the laws that you have, the long list of things that are required of you. And then stop it. Just stop it. And know that you're accepted, loved by the one who made the universe. Amen.
Please rise as we sing together.